welfare of society and the just government of man. We beseech thee to behold with thy abundant favor us, thy servants, whom thou hast been pleased to call to the performance of such important trusts in this land. Let thy blessing descend upon us here in this assembly, and grant that we may, as in thy presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote thy honor and glory, and to advance the good of those whose interests thou hast committed to our charge. All which we ask in your name, and for the sake of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Honorable Single Island Wide Electoral District Member, Mr. Kenneth Hodge. Thank you, members. Good morning. You may be seated. Are there any amendments to the minutes, please? If there are no amendments, can someone move that the minutes be accepted as circulated, please?
Madam Speaker, I move that the minutes be accepted as circulated.
Madam Speaker, I second.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of proceedings of the 15th meeting of the 4th session of the 12th Anguilla House of Assembly be confirmed as circulated. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Minutes of proceedings of the 15th meeting of the 4th session of the 12th Anguilla House of Assembly confirmed as circulated.
None. Announcements by the direction of the Speaker.
I make apologies for the member for Island Harbor and also the member for Sandy Hill who are absent with reason. Also, I just want to place on record our sincere thanks and appreciation to Mrs. Gloria Brooks for her 25 years of service to the Anguilla House of Assembly. After 25 years, Mrs. Brooks is a part of the fabric of this institution itself. And we just want to thank her for her hard work and her commitment. This week, we commemorate the 57th anniversary of the Anguilla Revolution, commonly referred to as Anguilla Day. It is a time when we reflect on the sacrifices and vision of our forebears, and I acknowledge their resilience and commitment to shaping a new Anguilla, and urge all of us to never lose the true spirit of the revolution. Everyone that I have spoken to from that era, including my parents, they testified that the glue that kept Anguilla together during that time was unity. Without a doubt, if Anguilla is to move forward progressively, we must also seek to be united. So I wish all Anguillians, and those who love Anguilla a happy Anguilla Day. I will also offer members an opportunity to extend greetings during any other orders of the day later in this session, in this meeting. Thank you, members.
Questions? None. Government statements and recent developments? None. Papers? None. Reports from committees? None. Petitions? None. Government notices? None. Private members' notices? None. Motions? None. Personal explanations? None. other business, government business, a bill for Administration of Justice Special Provisions Act 2024, first reading.
The Honorable
Thank
Attorney
you.
General is recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that a bill shortly entitled the Administration of Justice Special Provisions Act 2024 be read the first time.
Madam Speaker, I raise the second.
It has been moved and seconded that a bill shortly entitled, A Bill for Administration of Justice, Special Provisions Act 2024 be read a first time. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a first time.
An act to provide for the imposition of special provisions for the giving of evidence by vulnerable and intimidated witnesses, judge-alone trials in criminal proceedings, special procedures for the admissibility of evidence in criminal proceedings, anonymity orders, special rights and procedures of appeal for both prosecution and accused, and connected justice matters.
Bill read a first time.
Private members' bills? None. Private bills? None. Other orders of the day?
The Honorable Single Island Wide Electoral District Member, Mr. Kenneth Hodge, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Pleasant good morning to members of this Honorable House, members of the public who are tuned in via radio or via social media. Madam Speaker, I crave your indulgence at this point to extend condolences to the various houses of mourning at this time, Madam Speaker. In particular, the family of my late cousin Jerry Adams, to Angela and his children, brothers and sisters, Illich and Liston, and his sister Charlene, Marilyn. Madam Speaker, he is a great loss to the Frampton community. Everyone would have known him as one of the stalwart members at Lakes Hardware. He's the person that you went to when you went for any query on any item from the hardware store. Madam Speaker, he was a fixture in the Frampton community and we will sorely miss him. Madam Speaker, I was very pleased as well last week to have attended the retirement, so to speak, retirement dinner for Gloria. I think she has now attained the noble age of 65, but she's still batting strong, Madam Speaker. And of course, as you spoke in your opening remarks as well to the Anguilla Day activities and the theme, and Madam Speaker, I was blessed to have attended the ecumenical service on Sunday over at the Pro Cathedral. It was a very moving service, full of music and singing, Madam Speaker, and the sermon in particular, Madam Speaker, Canon Reed Simon gave us some nuggets, solid nuggets of advice to guide us by. And of course, last night, Madam Speaker, we were all blessed at the Blessed of All down at the Christian Fellowship Church, Madam Speaker. Wonderful singing, wonderful music, Madam Speaker, and we want to commend Lois for a great job. And Madam Speaker, this Thursday is the Anguilla Day parade at the James Ronald Webster Park, and I take this opportunity, Madam Speaker, to extend Happy Anguilla Day to all Anguillians and to invite them to come out to the park, Madam Speaker, and make this year's parade for the 57th anniversary of Anguilla Day a truly memorable one, Madam Speaker. I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Any other orders of the day? The Honorable Member for Valley South is recognized.
Good morning, Madam Speaker, and good morning to the members of this Honorable House. I must begin by echoing the sentiments of my colleague, the single and wide electoral member and acting premier, Mr. Kenneth Hodge, in offering condolences on the passing of Mr. Jerry Adams, whose presence in the community was a symbol of strength for many people. And I know that there are a lot of persons in the community who are hurting from his loss. And of course, a lot of persons generally in Anguilla's community who are hurting. We would have seen a number of tragic losses of persons. And I want to extend condolences to those who are mourning, not only here in Anguilla, of course, but also overseas. Madam Speaker, as you've given us the opportunity to commemorate the 57th anniversary of the Anguilla Revolution, I am brought back to the wards of Canon Simon in the ecumenical service on, what was it, 2 days ago? On Sunday. Sorry, losing track of the days. Who said, the past is a canceled check, the future is a promissory note, and the present is cash in hand. And he was saying that in light of the fact that as persons here within this community, that we still must, while we look back on the past, we must not live there. We must take the lessons that the past has equipped us with and use them in terms of our current and future investments. And I can't think of a better message given the theme for the 57th anniversary, which is honoring the past, celebrating our present, and building our future. And Madam Speaker, I think I must say that I am really privileged and honored to be a part of a team that I think is building a very sustainable path for the people of Anguilla. Building the future is not easy. Building for the future is not easy. Building is always a matter of sacrifice. And we would have seen the sacrifices that our forefathers would have put in, which would have been blood, sweat, and tears. The type of sacrifices we invest in this day and age are remarkably different from the sacrifices that persons would have made in days gone by. And I think it is a part of our patriotic duty as Anguillians when we see or when we notice our country requires sacrifice to stand up and provide that sacrifice. He also reminded us, this is at the service, he reminded us that there is a lot for us to celebrate in this day and age, especially when we take into consideration the global world affairs, both geopolitical, war, and other challenges that are faced in countries around the world, which have, by and large, escaped Anguilla. And so, Madam Speaker, on this 57th day, I pay homage to those persons in Anguilla, our elders, who were never afraid of making sacrifices for Anguilla. No price tag was too high to pay for Anguilla. I celebrate the persons today who understand the reality of sacrifices and what it means to walk towards a future that we currently don't have or we currently don't experience, and to those who are coming along the way after us, who will be part of building an Anguilla that is stronger, more resilient, less vulnerable to external shocks, as Anguilla has been over the past 15 to 20 years. And I would say that at this point, at this middle point in Anguilla's history, I believe that Anguilla is finally on the path to sustainable and resilient growth. And I hope that as an entire community, we take up arms, not physically, but mentally, to ensure that we keep strong to preserve the legacy our forefathers have built. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Valley South. Any other orders of the day? The Honorable Single Island Wide Electoral District Member, Mr. Joseph Vanterpool, is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning to yourself, my fellow members, the staff, and all those who are listening. I'd like to join with yourself and my colleagues in thanking Gloria for her years of service. I know that she is very much not only part of the fabric, but she's the life of the party, and we'll dearly miss her and her presence around here. But I've been told that, thankfully, hopefully, she'll be visiting us and still remain in our presence. I too would like to join my colleagues in extending condolences to all who mourn at this time and pray that God rest their soul. And I know that it's always tough losing persons. However, we are here with you in thought and spirit. And I also had the pleasure of attending the Blessed-ful last evening, Madam Speaker, and I woke up feeling quite blessed this morning. So I want to give my commendations and my shout-outs to the Anguilla National Choir, the Anguilla National Children's Choir, so ably led by Miss Lois. Madam Speaker, as we approach this Anguilla Day upcoming on Thursday, you know, this is one of those times of year that I think that we should truly go into not only in celebration, but also in reflection. In your words, we need to dwell on what was the true meaning of the revolution. Why did it take place, and what was the vision of our forefathers? And not only taking their vision into place, but figuring out what is the vision that we want to now see, given where we're at, given the course that we've charted, where do we want to take Anguilla? And that's not just for us in this room to dwell upon, Madam Speaker, but each and every one of us have our own part to play. So I want to wish everyone a happy Anguilla Day as it comes up. I want to wish everyone a safe Anguilla Day. But I would also like everyone to think about what part can we play into truly forging a better Anguilla. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Single Island Wide Electoral District Member, Mr. Joseph Vanterpool. The Honorable Single Island Wide Electoral District Member, Mrs. Quincy Gums Marie, is recognized.
Pleasant good morning to you, Madam Speaker, and to members of the House, those listening by Facebook Live and radio. Thank you for once again joining us. Madam Speaker, I'd like to begin on the somber note of recognizing the passing of Mr. Jerry Adams and sharing my deepest condolences to him and his family. Jerry was always someone who would have a kind word whenever we meet, an encouraging word, and I do know that losses, whether you're prepared for them or not, are always something very difficult. So my mind and my heart is with the family today. And following the agenda, I could say, set by my colleagues, I would like to recognize Gloria as well for her stellar service and making our time here at the Assembly a very lively one. She always says that she's been around politicians for too many years to count. And so everybody is her friend, and she went out of her way to make everyone feel welcomed. And I really look forward to her visiting, as she say, but I think it'll be a little bit more than that, us here and there whenever she can. And in keeping with retirement, last week we also had the opportunity to recognize the official retirement of Permanent Secretary of Finance, Mrs. Kathleen Rogers. And I'd like to, from this House, thank her for her years of service, particularly as it relates to preparation for budget and all financial matters. I remember traveling to the Joint Ministerial Conference last April-May, of which Kathleen Rogers was part of the delegation. And there was someone walking very quickly behind us, and we kept wondering, why is this lady following us? And then she said, which one of you is Kathleen Rogers? And I pointed to Ms. Rogers. She said, you're the one responsible for saving Anguilla. Anguilla was in a financial mess. You're the one responsible. Of course, I said, and my premier, but Kathleen is internationally known as someone who puts Anguilla's stability first and also ensures that Anguilla can live to fight another day. And they went the extra mile of recognizing that this was not the first time Kathleen stood in the gap for Anguilla and helped Anguilla emerge out of financial crisis. dating back to the 2010-2015 period, where they made reference of Anguilla being at the brink of financial ruin. And to hear that internationally, to hear that objectively spoken, I can't help but recognize her for her patriotism. And if you speak to anyone, you'd know that Kathleen's position is always, Anguilla deserves the best out of us. And whether it is on weekends, holidays, overnights, I spoke of the times of needing additional information to move things forward in my ministry, preparation for different engagements. So I find myself on her doorstep if I needed extra time. And while I would impose it because I know her, she never made it feel like it was too much. Anguilla is always worth the extra mile. And it's fitting to recognize her in this house as I move my remarks towards Anguilla Day, because we look forward to new persons joining our revolution. And I think the spirit of the revolution, of course, her emerging from the East, resides in her. And it's really good to see, and also to be a sponge next to her, to understand the importance of where she stood, putting country before her job, and where I stand, putting my country before politics. So she has been an inspiration, and I'd like to recognize her and thank her for her years of service. Madam Speaker, just before moving towards my Anguilla Day remarks, I'd also like to speak on something that's not everybody's favorite subject, but it's a reoccurring one, which is hurricane season, which will begin on June 1st. And it's a very frightening forecast for the region this year. As we look at, as you know, as the Minister of the Environment, these things are, and climate change, these things are always on the top of mind. And we look at May and the temperatures we experience in May, and the scientists are saying that our water temperatures are of that of August in May, 5 to 7 degrees above norm. And that is very concerning. And where we have so much to celebrate and there's so much to look forward to, it's always a little daunting to have a hurricane or the possibility of a hurricane weigh on your mind. Things like the rapid intensification and stronger storms. And even if we are spared, you know, it doesn't mean that our brothers and sisters won't be spared. It won't mean that economies that we rely on to build our economies won't be spared. So we keep our mind on that, and I ask for God's coverage of us, where we would like to be spared, but if not, that our resilience speaks for itself. I got a message from the clerk this morning, everybody did, that we'll have an opportunity to give remarks on Anguilla Day, so I made some notes on my phone, that's why I have it in my hand. As we celebrate the occasion in our nation's history of the 57th anniversary of the Anguilla Revolution, it is a day that reminds us of the bravery, resilience, and visions of our forebears who saw Anguilla as a land worth fighting for. Their courage and determination have paved the way for the progress we witness today. Anguilla, as we all know it, is a unique place, not just for its natural beauty, but for the spirit of its people. Our people who have always been our richest resource, embodying the strength and tenacity needed to overcome any and every challenge. As we reflect on our journey as a country, it is clear that we have made significant strides. Yet, we must not forget those who came before us, those who believed in the potential of this island and understood that the fight for freedom and prosperity were worth it. As we look towards the future, we are called to engage in a new revolution, one that requires us to address the evolving challenges of our time with the same fervor and unity that marked the Anguilla Revolution. We must understand that we are slowly losing the stalwarts of that historic movement. And the question that lies before us is, who will stand? Who amongst us will dare to envision a politics that transcends differences and unites us in a pursuit of a common goal? To understand that Anguilla will always be worth the fight. Our politics and conversation must evolve. It must move beyond the divisions of the past and present, and present a vision of a united Anguilla, committed to the necessary causes that will ensure our collective well-being. We must understand in this movement that we are only halfway in our journey. An independent Anguilla remains our goal, and the fight against neocolonialism is as vital today as it was in 1967. These are the causes that demand our dedication and our collective effort. Economic strength and resilience will always be our greatest weapons. They are worth every single sacrifice that we make. An economically strong Anguilla will empower us to shape our destiny, to provide for our people, and to stand proudly on the world stage. It is a vision that requires the commitment of every Anguillian, working together to build a future that honors the legacy of our forebearers, while embracing the opportunities and challenges of the present. As we recognize this 57th anniversary, let us rededicate ourselves to the ideals of the Anguilla Revolution. Let us honor those whose sacrifices came before us by standing firm in our resolve to achieve a truly independent, united, and prosperous Anguilla. Together, we can continue to build a nation that not only remembers its past, but is boldly committed to the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Single Island Wide Electoral District Member, Mrs. Quincy Gums-Marie. The Honorable Member for Road North is recognized.
Good morning and thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to wish a hearty good morning to all those who are listening, whether it's by Facebook or Radio Anguilla, and to everyone here in the House of Assembly, a good morning to you. I would like to start off by offering condolences to all those who mourn, especially the Adams family in the Farrington. May God grant you peace in this your time of bereavement. I too would also like to share congratulations to Ms. Gloria Brooks and Ms. Kathleen Rogers, who I had the pleasure of attending both of their retirement lunches, and I had a chance to offer my remarks at both of those, so I wouldn't go through them again, especially for Ms. Brooks. I wouldn't want to repeat what I would have to say about here in this House of Assembly, but just to say that both have been stalwarts in assisting us as we go along. As we talk about honoring our past, I had the pleasure of attending the Brown Bucket Track and Field meet, the second annual meet. I had the pleasure last year of attending when Rosanna Brown and Ras Bucket Trevor Davis were honored for their exploits and what they have contributed to track and field. And this year I was especially happy to once again join with them as they honored Evelyn and someone who I've said, Evelyn Hodge-Carty and Carly Taffy Richardson, someone who I've told everybody probably the fastest human I've ever seen with my naked eyes, and this was before all our advanced training. One particular sports day, he ran and won every event from the 100 meter up to the 1500 meter, which was a remarkable feat. I also want to offer congratulations to Natal's own Alvarado Gomes, who was the winner of the bartending battle at the Anguilla Culinary Experience on Sunday gone. A young man who has shown his talents and came out victorious in that event. So congratulations to you, Al. And I just want to say, while I'm standing, happy Anguilla Day to everyone who's listening and everyone who will hear this. A happy Anguilla Day to all, especially to the good folks of North Hill, Sandy Ground, and South Hill that make up District 5. I've been driving around, Madam Speaker, and I've seen some villages displaying their patriotism by fixing up and beautifying their villages, some of them very, very creative. And I'm not going to be a judge, but there's a particular village that really gone the extra mile to, and I won't call no names because I don't want to appear that I'm prejudicing the judges, but there's a village that has honored the past by putting out flats that used to be in the pond back in the day, and I think everyone should drive through the village of North Hill and see that display. It's really amazing. But again, I just want to wish everyone who's listening a happy Anguilla Day. Please enjoy the festivities. Please enjoy the boat racing. I know myself, the member from West End and the member from Island Harbor always go back and forth about which boat is the best boat. But what I want to caution everyone, just be safe on the seas, be safe while we're driving. We know it's a holiday, we know everyone is going to be enjoying themselves, but I ask that everyone be safe and have a happy Anguilla Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Road North. Are there any other orders of the day? The Honorable Member for Valley North is recognized.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Madam Speaker. At this time, I would like to also extend my condolences to the Adams family on the passing of Jerry, and I wish them comfort during this very difficult time. I also, Madam Speaker, wish to acknowledge all that we have achieved within the last few decades since the Anguilla Revolution. In spite of the fact that there are many that would give the impression that there's been no progress in Anguilla and nothing has been done over the many decades. The reality is, Madam Speaker, is that we have made quite a bit of infrastructural changes in the past years since the revolution. We've also had the opportunity to formally educate a number of young Anguillians, Madam Speaker, many of whom are operating very successfully here locally, but also in the diaspora, Madam Speaker. So I wish to commend all of those who have paved the way for us, Madam Speaker, both during the Anguilla Revolution, but even since that period of time, those who have invested heavily in business development, Madam Speaker, those who have taken the opportunity to make strong and solid contributions to Anguilla. In my constituency alone, Madam Speaker, there are a number of business individuals who have helped to carry Anguilla in many years, Madam Speaker. The Proctor's family, the Albert Lake family, Madam Speaker, Mr. Watkin Hodges' family at Caracas Bay. All of these are individuals, Madam Speaker, who have contributed significantly to the development of Anguilla, both financially but also socially, Madam Speaker. I wish to commend all of the individuals who continue to actively seek and play a strong role in the development of Anguilla. I ask that we remain hopeful in the years and periods ahead. I wish everyone a safe and prosperous Anguilla Day. I ask persons to celebrate responsibly. Madam Speaker, if you're going to consume alcohol, do so responsibly and make sure that you have someone who's a designated driver, Madam Speaker, because we all know, how those things can go during those celebratory periods. Also, Madam Speaker, I wish everyone a safe and happy Anguilla Day generally. I will not be physically on island during Anguilla Day because I will be celebrating Anguilla Day in the diaspora, Madam Speaker. So again, I wish to wish everyone a happy, safe, and successful Anguilla Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Valley North. The Honorable Member for West End is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and good morning to all in the House and those who are following our program today. Madam Speaker, I had the opportunity of offering condolences yesterday to the Adams family, but also to a number of Anguillian families who would have lost up to 10 persons over the last 2 weeks. So as much as we celebrate occasions like Anguilla Day, there are some heavy hearts throughout our land. But Madam Speaker, I must say of the Anguilla Enhancement Project, a program, I give them a lot of credit because we all love competitions. And the fact that they've decided that we'll have a competition throughout the villages to see, or the districts, to see who best represents on Anguilla Day. And when the member for Road North was speaking, I was sure he was talking about West End when he said he didn't want to be biased. Because, Madam Speaker, I'm real proud of the team that we have down there, as I'm sure every district would be pleased with their team. But I think for us, and this is not to try to persuade the judges in any way, is that a number of the areas that we've developed, they're not just for Anguilla Day, but it's, as far as we're concerned, every day is Anguilla Day. And I'd like to think that that same spirit that all of us are proud when we drive up and down Anguilla Day following the boat race, that we would like to see more of that. And I really ask that all of our people of Anguilla, those who are actively involved in putting the whole act together, but those who just drive past and at least acknowledge the work that's put in, please keep our island clean, because there's a lot of work that is required in order to do so. Madam Speaker, as I look around the House, I think the closest person to me in age might be the honorable member who's acting premier. So when you talk about what it was like back then, I think very few of us in the House can say what it was like. I am happy to say I was one, Madam Speaker. And when you talk about the spirit of the revolution, it really hits home, because as a child, age of 6, and seeing men and women of the villages of the West End, Long Bay, going to the beaches of a nighttime, trimming the lamps before they go out, because we didn't have a Navy, we didn't have an Air Force. A couple of years later, we got invaded by air. But the fact is, Madam Speaker, that those persons back then, they believe in the future of Anguilla, not necessarily for them, but for the children and the grandchildren and the great-grands. So when we talk about Anguilla day to day, over the next couple of days, we think of parades at the park, boat racing, festivities mainly on the water. We need to take time to say thank you to those who have sacrificed much when they really didn't know what was beyond. So again, Madam Speaker, I ask all of us, Anguillians, visitors to Anguilla, and the other thing I will say, Madam Speaker, is that what is special about Anguilla Day is not just about for Anguillians in Anguilla, but Anguillians that are overseas. I think they all will feel that it is their day as well, because they are Anguillians. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member for West End. AG, I know that you live and work in Anguilla, and every person living and working in Anguilla knows something about Anguilla and can say something to Anguillians. So I'm just going to put you on the spot and recognize you at this moment.
Well, there was no need to do so. It was
Thank
my
you.
intention to go after the elected people.
I'll leave the elected go last.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And it is interesting that you've called on me specifically in this regard on this occasion, because I'm nearing the end of my tenure and time with you. And so it is quite serendipitous, so to speak, to be called upon in this regard. Just allow me merely to say that, partly reflectively, I can attest from my experience living in this community that surely the animating spirit, if you will, of what you celebrate as the originating cause or causes of the Anguilla Revolution back then still lives, in my humble view, because I have found brothers and sisters in the community to be independent-minded and very much a resilient community, resilient to natural disasters, whether it be a hurricane, tropical storm, flooding, unforced errors or unforced disasters that were man-made either deliberately or by dint of some other cause, whether it be economic, social, in terms of crime, and so on. I found the national community to be very resilient and very much a close-knit community that is forward-looking. Perhaps emerging from the many years that you have been celebrating this day, may come a deeper appreciation of what the original resistance conceived for Anguilla. And by that I mean directly so, that there will come a time when the community must more profoundly reflect on deeper self-government and what that will mean for generations to come. And so, as you celebrate the 57th anniversary of your Anguilla Revolution, embodied in the Anguilla Day celebration, I congratulate you on many years of strides and development, and I can see in my mind's eye 57 more of very remarkable and impressive achievements for a small community. And I congratulate you on that. And I can say that from time to time, hopefully if I am continued in the blessings of life and breath, I will live to see your many strides and to maybe be a part of it sometime again. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Attorney General. And now last but could never be by any means least, no means least, the Honorable Member for Road South.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I should have been second to last just before the member for West End because, you know, moving in chronological order. But be that as it may, he jumped the broom before me. Yes, jumped the broom. But, Madam Speaker, I too would like to join my colleagues in expressing condolences to the family of Jerry Adams. I've known Jerry for a very, very long time, Madam Speaker, working at Lakes Hardware. And Jerry, he can tell you when I first started working, it was between Lakes Hardware and Caracas Bay, where I started buying materials at the tender age of 18 to start constructing my home and business, Madam Speaker. And if it was not for Lakes Hardware and the council of Jerry, and more so Caracas Bay, I probably wouldn't have had what I've had today. Because I can tell you, my first house, every bit of materials was credited from Caracas by Watkin Hodge and his family. And it says a lot about those individuals, because he was also elected, Madam Speaker. There was a time in Anguilla's history when there was a giant, a political giant called the Honorable James Ronald Webster, who they would say, you put a hat on a donkey, and you say vote for the hat and call it that, and they will vote for that donkey. And I'm not calling anybody donkeys, but that was a saying, just for a matter of political, historical context, Madam Speaker. And he wanted Watkin Hodge to run for elected office. And Watkin Hodge did not want to run, Madam Speaker. He was a humble man, a philanthropist, worked with the community, worked with Anguilla as a whole. And Ronald said, well, you know, you may not want to have a speech, but we'll bring the speech to you. And he went over to Stoner Ground in front of Watkin Hodge's shop, set up camp. And Watkin was behind the cashier's man cashing out. And he called into the mic. He came out, he said, hello everybody, I'm Watko, you know me. He went back in behind his cashier. And he won the election overwhelmingly. Well, Watkin wasn't about that. Watkin was about serving people. But it says something about that, Madam Speaker, and I don't want to digress too much, but can you imagine persons like Watkin Hodge and Albert Lake and persons of that ilk, Madam Speaker, did so much to build the capacity, the human development, the infrastructural development of the people of this country. And as soon as the boats came from Southeast Asia, Madam Speaker, all the way to Mandarin China, we abandoned those stalwarts and crushed their businesses, Madam Speaker. But that's another topic for another time, Madam Speaker. But Jerry have always been helpful, and he was a sports enthusiast, Madam Speaker. He loved cycling, he loved cricket, he loved softball. He always liked to see where we were going in terms of what our athletes were doing, always asked for updates, and was really surprised when I heard that he had passed. I know he wasn't feeling too well, but I was really surprised when he had passed. And it tells you about the fragility of life, Madam Speaker. And that is why, while we are on this earth, we must do everything that we can to benefit the people around us and the next generation, because we know not when the end comes. The Bible itself says that we know not when that time comes. There'll be marrying and giving of marriage and everything, but we know not when that time will come, and the second coming will come, Madam Speaker. And similarly, we don't know when we'll pass. I remember it was December the 17th, 2014, when I was just about to stand on my feet during the budget address, Madam Speaker. And during that time, the technology was not as advanced as it was, that you had to turn your cell phones off. And you had just issued the decree in the House to turn the cell phones off. So I went to turn my cell phone off, and my brother Greg called. And I hung it up, and he called again, I hung it up, and I was going to call, and he called again. I said, let me answer it. And when I answered it, he was on the other line. And Madam Speaker, history will show that 10 years ago, December this year, we all left this parliament quickly to go into the hospital to find that my brother had died suddenly. So we just don't know, Madam Speaker. But also, Madam Speaker, we also celebrate those who have given a lot and have gotten to the point of retirement. And Gloria Brooks, the daughter of Mac Brooks, Madam Speaker, another stalwart in Anguilla, Madam Speaker. Mac Brooks was a contractor, big contractor, Madam Speaker, not only in terms of the amount of buildings that he built in Anguilla, but a big man, Madam Speaker, with a big voice and a big presence, Madam Speaker. He was a contractor of Karama that stands today as a beacon, Madam Speaker, one of the best performing hospitality products in Anguilla. In Carabella, I think it was, in Catouche, and he did a lot, Madam Speaker, and he's a hard-working man, and he banked at Barclays. So the Honorable Parliamentary Secretary and I, we had occasion to see him on a regular basis and meet him on a regular basis, because banking was different back then. It was very personable, and you do everything to make sure that the customer was taken care of. And if you're out a cent, at the end of the day, we found that cent. We didn't have to wait 2-3 years, Madam Speaker, to figure out that there was a glitch in the system, Madam Speaker. We were very efficient, Madam Speaker. But be that as it may, that'll be taken care of, and I know the Honorable Premier has been fighting the battle behind the scenes, even though it is what it is, to ensure that all persons are made whole, Madam Speaker. But we celebrate Gloria as she enters into the next chapter of her life. She's still a young woman, Madam Speaker. And you know she has a lot of vitality. The Honorable Parliamentary Secretary spoke of the untold. But she has a lot of vitality, Madam Speaker. And I can see her, enjoying the rest of her years, helping to raise her grandchildren, including her new grandchildren that are on the way, Madam Speaker. So I know she's going to enjoy her retirement. She's going to visit us from time to time. And she's always the life of the party, enjoying herself. And we enjoy seeing her enjoying herself. That is the way life ought to be lived, Madam Speaker. And we also celebrate Kathleen Rogers. I'm very disappointed that she did not ask for an extension, Madam Speaker, because Kathleen Rogers is one of those public servants that we celebrate and we revere, Madam Speaker, dedicated to our fault. Dedicated to our fault. No task is too big, Madam Speaker. Diligent, Madam Speaker. And she has been disadvantaged in Anguilla Public Service, Madam Speaker. I can recall 2010 when she was the Permanent Secretary of Finance, Madam Speaker. And Hubert Benjamin Hughes came to office and was given 3 months to fix the fiscal position of the government of Anguilla, Madam Speaker. And herself and Dr. Aidan Harrigan and the team at the Ministry of Finance got to work, because no budget, for the first time in the history of Anguilla, no budget was presented, Madam Speaker, leading to the 2010 budgetary cycle. And they had to present a budget, and they were able to present that budget. And that budget was summarily dismissed by William Alistair Harrison, Madam Speaker. And they presented another budget, and that budget was dismissed. to the point that in the first time in Anguilla's history, that in April of 2010, we attended the Executive Council to give instructions to the Honorable Attorney General Bowen, not of your Bowen, but the other Bowen, Madam Speaker, to give instructions, drafted instructions to amend the legislation of the Financial Audit Act to extend governance without collapsing government. Madam Speaker, it came to the House on that day. It was drafted, went back to Executive Council for ratification, came to this House in short order, passed on the Friday, Madam Speaker, to extend the life of government. And because of an agreement that was made prior to the 2010 election by the government of the United Kingdom and the government of the day, Madam Speaker, of the United Front administration at the time, we had to accept consultants from the United Kingdom on expenditure and revenue, Madam Speaker. And they came into Anguilla because that was a commitment. It didn't matter that governments had changed. And I remembered Kathleen Rogers, Dr. Aidan Harrigan, and Josephine Gomes-Connor in the Chief Minister's office battling with Chris Bryant, who was the Minister over the Overseas Territories. And he was saying it doesn't matter if government change. The position remains the same, the fiscal position, and you have to remedy it. I am going out to fight for an election, and you go and do what you have to do, what you committed to do, even though the commitment was made before we came to government, Madam Speaker. And so that battle was waged, and eventually these consultants came and they did an expenditure study and a revenue study, and the expenditure study spoke of cutting the Anguilla public service significantly, Madam Speaker, and a number of other things, early retirement, and a number of other things, Madam Speaker, cuts in salaries, etc., 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 cuts in services, cuts in goods, and also increase in revenue. And there was a man that was sent by the name of Ved Gandhi from the International Monetary Fund. And if you know of the International Monetary Fund, you want to know the inside workings of the International Fund, just buy the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and you'll see the thrust of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, Madam Speaker. And that was the first time I heard of the IMF meddling in the business of a colony, Madam Speaker. And so, Ved Gandhi and the team had to get to work to come up with ways to reduce the expenditure and to increase the revenue, because in 2010, $154 million was raised in total, Madam Speaker. And a number of things were done. Property tax was increased by over 100%. Property tax was increased. There was a tax that was called the Interim Stabilization Levy that was implemented. Customs surcharge went from 1% to 6%, and a number of other measures, Madam Speaker. And the budget was presented. And Harrison was still apprehensive. And there was a meeting that was held in the Teachers Resource, not the Teachers Resource Center, in the Rodney MacArthur Ray Auditorium, Madam Speaker. And Ved Gandhi stood in there and he took up the budget and he said, this budget stands. And because he was sent and paid for by Her Majesty's government at the time, now His Majesty's government, Harrison reluctantly agreed to the budget, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, we always have to understand the context of whence we came. And Madam Speaker, Kathleen Rogers was always there. And eventually, that year, she was told she has to move out of the Ministry of Finance, Madam Speaker. And I saw Hubert Benjamin Hughes with tears in his eyes, literal tears, crying, beg not for it to happen. I saw the acting governor, Stanley Reed, and the acting deputy governor, Larry Franklin, in the chief minister's office, and he begged and cried. I was sitting there, Madam Speaker, and they were giggling and said, we have the authority to do this under the Constitution, and this shall be done. I saw it, witnessed it firsthand, Madam Speaker. And she was transferred to public administration, Madam Speaker. Public administration. And when this administration came back to office, she was placed back to where her greatest qualifications and attributes are. And she did a tremendous job to the point of where we are fiscally today, Madam Speaker. Wrong pegs in wrong holes. Wrong pegs in wrong holes, Madam Speaker. So I wish her a wonderful retirement. She too is still a young woman, and there's a lot for her to offer. We probably need to revisit the retirement age, Madam Speaker, because we are living longer. But be that as it may, we probably come to this House at some point in time to revisit the retirement legislation, Madam Speaker. So, Kathleen and Gloria, I wish you a wonderful retirement, and I hope that this retirement does not mean that you have retired, but you have just retired from the regular duties that you have been doing. And Madam Speaker, I also want to join my colleagues in congratulating the Anguilla Enhancement Project for the job that they have been doing. And I cannot congratulate the Anguilla Enhancement Project without also congratulating Josephine Holliger, Madam Speaker. Because before the Anguilla Enhancement Project, Josephine Holliger was out there on his own expense doing a lot of enhancements to Anguilla, not only in South Hill, but you can see even there at MacBrook's old warehouse, where there's a mural painted. Josephine did that. And if you can see the old water tank next to the roundabout in South Hill, Josephine did that. Right? So the Anguilla Enhancement Project is a great initiative, and we are planning to partner with the Anguilla Enhancement Project, Madam Speaker, because we have a scourge of derelict vehicles in Anguilla that needs to be addressed, Madam Speaker. So amongst all the great things that they have been doing, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. The Litter Abatement Act needs to be enforced. We need to stop littering this country. The trucks that drive around this country need to adhere to the law, and I see a police officer in the gallery, and I hope that they will start ticketing these trucks that drive around Anguilla uncovered, blowing garbage all over the place, Madam Speaker, because this happens on a daily basis, Madam Speaker. And so, we have work to do, and I congratulate the Anguilla Enhancement Project, and I congratulate the South Hill community for winning this year's Anguilla Day competition, Madam Speaker. So, what's the question? Madam Speaker.
Do not mislead this House.
Madam
member.
Speaker, I don't know if you are not aware, but one of the things that I've been accredited with is the psychic powers, Madam Speaker. Not Mama Musa. Mama what? Mama Lisa. But Madam Speaker, we are also here in this House today in the last Parliament before Anguilla Day, Madam Speaker. Anguilla Day, Madam Speaker. And we celebrate Anguilla Day. This is the 57th year. None of us in here were born when the first Anguilla Day was celebrated, except for Cardi, the member for West End. Well, I'm not sure if Ken is 57 already, but I do know that Cardi is way beyond 60. So I know that he would have been around during the days of revolution. Maybe he threw rocks too, Madam Speaker, because he's a Hughes, you know. But this is the 57th anniversary of the celebration of Anguilla Day, Madam Speaker. And I grew up in a different house. I grew up in the house of a man who ran with Robert Llewellyn Brasher, the last man in Anguilla to run with Robert Llewellyn Brasher, Madam Speaker. I grew up in that house. And that was Mr. Hubert Benjamin Hughes, who ran in the elections in 1961 as a candidate for the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla Labour Party, Madam Speaker. Because back then, Anguilla was one constituency. You voted island-wide. So you had to vote from Island Harbour to West End for an individual. And he was unsuccessful. He was a young man in his 20s when he ran in that first election, Madam Speaker. We didn't have electricity, running water. We didn't have any systems so you had to move around with this, I don't know what you call it, but you held it in your hand, and you shouting it. Well, sorry? Bullhorn. But you know, my father had such a powerful voice, right? That when we were kids and we went down to stand the ground, to the beach, he could stay in South Hill and call us and we could hear him. So I don't know if he developed that skill over time, but that was amazing. But Madam Speaker, in 18 1982, the British government really didn't see any value in us. And they lumped us into a federation called the Sixteenth Anguilla Federation. You're all on your own. And from 1882, the Anguillan people did not like that situation, Madam Speaker. And the revolution will show that we throw a lot of the blame on Bradshaw. And I'm not here to say he's not to be blamed for anything. But I do know that in 1882, we were not happy. And Bradshaw was born in 1916. And he only became chief minister in 1966 and premier in 1967. Because at the time, they say, hey, we want to go into independence. And so, Madam Speaker, we had a revolution in 1967. And in 1969, Madam Speaker, we had, on the 6th of February 1969, we had an independence referendum, Madam Speaker. And in that referendum for independence from England, Madam Speaker, because we had already gotten in our heads independence from Sixteenth Nevis. In that independence referendum from Sixteenth Nevis, 1,739 people voted for independence and 4 people voted against. That's a matter of record. 4 people voted against. And Madam Speaker, we became an independent republic on the 11th of July, 1967. And it lasted until March 19, 1969, Madam Speaker. Because they say Anguilla was taken over by gangsters. So they came in, British government came in, and for all intents and purposes, recolonized us, Madam Speaker. And when they came in, eventually we had the Island Council, and we just laid to rest the final member of the Anguilla Council, Madam Speaker. A constitution was set up that gave the government of Anguilla no powers whatsoever. No powers. And that Island Council boycotted what we would have called Executive Council, Madam Speaker, until they came to the table and we negotiated a constitution that gave us immense powers in 1976 Constitution, Madam Speaker. We had an election and Ronald Webster became the chief minister. In one of his final letters that he wrote, he reminded Chief Minister Hubert Hughes and the people of Anguilla that when we set out in 1967, we set out to become an independent country, Madam Speaker. And I look to you right now and I see the flag. And the people of Anguilla need to understand that just as we celebrate our 50th anniversary of the Anguilla Summer Festival, which is really and truly the celebration of the emancipation from slavery, never forget why we have that. It's a celebration of an emancipation from slavery. So too, as we talk about Anguilla Day, we need to understand that what we really wanted then, and where we have not yet arrived to, is that of complete political and constitutional independence from the United Kingdom, Madam Speaker. And that is where our next step in constitutional advancement should be. I hear people talking about constitutional reform, this and constitutional reform that. There should not be any constitutional reform unless that constitutional reform is putting the power of this country solely in the hands of the people of this country, Madam Speaker, through independence, Madam Speaker. And that needs to be the next step. As a matter of fact, in the 2025 election, we should have independence on the ballot. Because I know that the opposition is not adverse to independence, because I heard the leader of the opposition in St. Martin said that if you want to get rid of GST, the only way is through independence. So it seems as if we have a common ground, and I would hope that we all can band together. And on the 60th anniversary, when we go to the James Ronald Webster's Park, we will have the new Anguilla flag, Madam Speaker, on both sides, symbolizing our final place, and that is to become a free and independent country. And only then can we speak about becoming proud, strong, and free. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Road South. And on that note, I will remind all persons to come on out to the James Ronald Webster Park on Thursday, this Thursday, May 30th at 7:45 a.m. to join in the parade or to view the parade as we commemorate the 57th anniversary of the Anguilla Day Revolution. Thank you, members, for your contributions.
Adjournment.
Madam Speaker, I rise to move that this Honorable House be adjourned until Tuesday, 11th of June, 2024 at 10 a.m.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second.
It has been moved and seconded that this Honorable House now stands adjourned until June 11th at 10 a.m. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. This Honorable House now stands adjourned until June 11th at 10 a.m. Thank you, members. Have a good day and happy Anguilla Day to all.